Hello everyone, I am Vibha Chauhan and welcome to Jain Classes Funda Clear. First of all, thank to all of you for supporting me. So today I will explain Class 8 History Chapter 2. Chapter is From Trade to Territory. What do you mean by trade? Trade is the process of purchasing and procuring the goods and services with the object of selling them at a profit. So this is the definition of trade. And what is territory? Territory is any region or province or state or country. So any region can be territory. So this is territory. And what do you mean by from trade to territory? This heading denotes that Britishers came to India for the purpose of trade and how they conquered all territories of India. So this heading denotes this. And what we are going to study in this chapter? These are East Company comes east, and in this we will study East India Company begins trade in Bengal, how trade led to battles. The Battle of Plassey, company officials become Nabobs and company rule expands, Tipu Sultan, Tiger of Mysore. War with the Marathas, the claim to paramountcy, the doctrine of lapse, setting up a new administration, the company army, and conclusion. So if you take this chapter as a story, then it would become easier. So let's begin. Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb was the last powerful Mughal emperor. After he died in 1707, a new power was emerging. It was British Empire. East India Company comes east. So in 1600, British East India Company acquired a charter from Queen Elizabeth I, and this charter granted that from Britain only British East India Company would come to India for trade and any other company from Britain wouldn't come for trade in India. So this charter granted all these things. But however, this charter couldn't grant that from other European countries wouldn't come for trade in India. Other European countries that came to India for trade were Dutch, French and many more. So they were also interested in trade with India. But as the charter couldn't stop any other European country, there were conflicts between trade companies. They all were interested in buying same things. So there were conflicts between them. They used to sink their ships, attack on rival companies. Trade was done with arms and fortifications for their goods. They made goods posts for their trade. But this fortification created problem with local traders. As anyone came to their territory and make fortifications, so anyone would be upset with that. So the East India Company understood that there was a problem with trade with these politics. So they thought of doing something else to expand their trade. How they expanded, let's see. East India Company begins trade in Bengal. So in 1651, the British East India Company came to the side of River Hooghly. And that was the base where from their traders known as factors at that time were operated, and that's how their warehouses where they stored their goods for export known as factory. And then in 1696 they started to build forts for their trade to store their goods, and after 2 years the company bribed Mughal officials and took the zamindari rights of 3 territories of Bengal. One of these territories were Kalikata, which later came to be known as Calcutta or Kolkata in present days. And the company also preceded a farman from the Emperor of Delhi, Aurangzeb. They wanted to trade duty-free through this farman, and Aurangzeb granted this farman. Farman means any royal order by supreme or king. Trade duty-free means they had not to pay any taxes on trade which they were doing. So this farman was granted by Aurangzeb. This farman was only for the company trade, but the company officials were misusing this. How? They were misusing this by, just like a company official is in market and he wanted to buy something, but he was not paying tax, showing the farman granted by Aurangzeb. So this was the misuse of farman by the company officials, and this caused a great enormous loss of revenue to Nawab of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan. How? If anybody is not paying the tax, then it is obvious then it will be a great loss for Nawab of Bengal. And how could Nawab of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan, be silent for how much time? So how trade led to battles? As in 1707, when Aurangzeb died, the Nawab of Bengal asserted his autonomy, as other regional powers were doing same thing at that time. And the Nawab of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan, was followed by Alivardi Khan and then Siraj ud Dawla. Each of them was a strict and great ruler. They refused to give any concessions to the company. Here company is referring to British East India Company. So they refused to give any concessions to the company and demanded a very large tribute to carry on their trades. And they denied the company to mint coins, to expand its fortifications, and they claimed that the company was undermining its authority, and the company was writing disrespectful letters which were humiliating the Nawabs of Bengal. So the company also declared on its part, on its side, it declared that these unjust demands of the Nawabs were ruining their trade, paying their tributes were ruining their trade, and to expand their trade they had to enlarge its fortifications, buy up villages and rebuild their forts. So this conflict grew up bigger between the Nawabs of Bengal and the company, and this led to Battle of Plassey. So next topic is Battle of Plassey. When in 1756 Alivardi Khan died, Siraj ud Dawla was made the Nawab of Bengal. But the British company was worried about this, about his power, and wanted to make a puppet ruler who would give all concessions to them, would not ask for revenue, taxes, and allow it to expand its fortifications. So they wanted to make a puppet ruler who would act as the puppet of their hand. But Siraj ud Dawla asked them not to interfere in his matters and asked them for revenue and asked them to stop its fortifications. But when all negotiations were failed, Siraj ud Dawla with his 30,000 soldiers marched to Qasim Bazar, where he captured company's trade post, disarmed all Englishmen, blockaded all ships, and locked the warehouse. And after this he marched to the Calcutta, and after hearing the news of fall of Calcutta, Robert Clive with his soldiers marched to the Siraj ud Dawla, and finally in 1757 the Battle of Plassey was fought between both of them. So in this battle, Siraj ud Dawla was defeated by Robert Clive. One of the reasons of his defeat was that his one commander, Mir Jafar, didn't fight the battle with his soldiers because he was promised by Robert Clive that he would make the Nawab of Bengal after the crushing of Siraj ud Dawla. So he didn't fight the battle for being the Nawab of Bengal. This battle is known as Battle of Plassey because it was fought at the place called Plassey. Plassey is an anglicized version of Plassey. So that's why it is called Battle of Plassey. And when after the Battle of Plassey, when Siraj-ud-Dowlah was assassinated by British, Mir Jafar was made the Nawab of Bengal. He was supposed to give all concessions to British, not to ask for revenues. The company still was unwilling to take responsibilities of administration because the main objective of it was to expand their trade, to get money from India. They had to expand their trade. They only came India only for the purpose of trade. So they didn't want to take responsibilities of administration, but they find rather difficult to expand their trade. Even for the puppet ruler, they found it difficult. After all, the Nawab had to show his appearance of dignity and sovereignty if he wanted to get support from his subjects. So when Mir Jafar protested against British company, the company displaced him and installed Mir Qasim as the Nawab of Bengal. But when Mir Qasim complained against British, they fought the Battle of Buxar in 1764, in which Mir Qasim was assassinated and Mir Jafar was reinstalled as the Nawab of Bengal. And when Mir Jafar was reinstalled as the Nawab of Bengal, he had to pay 500,000 rupees, means 5 lakh rupees every month to the company. And in 1765, when Mir Jafar died, the company finally made its move to become Nawabs. Robert Clive declared that they must indeed become Nawabs. And finally in 1765, the company was made the Diwan of Bengal by the Emperor of Delhi. In Diwani rights, the company had right to collect revenue from the provinces of Bengal. And after getting the Diwani right, the major problem of British was solved. They used the revenue money for their expenses, for expanding their troops, to enlarging their fortifications, to buy goods from India, because before they had no goods to sell in India and had to pay gold and silver for buying the goods from the India which was imported from Britain. And after the Battle of Plassey, the outflow of gold and silver was slowed from Britain, and after getting the Diwani right, it was entirely stopped. So they get a very high profit after getting the Diwani right. Company officials become Nawabs. What did it mean to be Nawabs by British? Of course, it means taking power, taking authority, but it also means something else. What did it mean? Each servant of the company began to have visions of living like a Nawab. It means all of them was living like a Nawab, leading a luxurious life and wanted to live like a Nawab. And after the Battle of Plassey, many of them had made a very big good fortune in India. Even Robert Clive himself had made a very good fortune in India. When he left India in 1767, his worth in India was 40,102 pounds. It was a very great sum at that time. And after some time, he was claimed to be corrupt and he committed suicide. And many of them wanted to make a fortune like Clive, but they failed because they died in diseases and wars. Diseases means they had come from different climate, and climate of India was different, so they couldn't survive. And all of them were not corrupt or dishonest. Many of them came from humble background and wanted only to trade in India and earn enough money and then return back in Britain and led a comfortable life. And when company officials returned to Britain after making a vast sum of money in India, they were always made fun as they were Nabobs of India. Nabob is an anglicized version of Nawab. So they were made fun because they had made fortune in India and had lived like a Nawab of India. Company rule expands. So how did the company rule expand? The company rarely used direct military confrontations. They simply used diplomatic, economic or political policies to annex Indian states. After Battle of Buxar in 1764, they sent their residents in every Indian states. The resident had to serve and the interest for the company. Through the residents, the company interfered the internal matters of Indian states, and many of the kings were under subsidiary alliance. What was subsidiary alliance? According to this alliance, it was decided by the company that Indian states were not allowed to have their independent army. They had to be protected by the company's army, but Indian states had to pay for this subsidiary protection, and if any Indian state failed to pay the amount of subsidiary alliance, their part of territories would be handed over to the British, and through this subsidiary alliance, half part of the Awadh was taken by the British, and Hyderabad was also forced through this subsidiary alliance. So this was subsidiary alliance. Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore. Tipu Sultan was the great ruler of Mysore. Mysore was a territory of India in the southern part. So why was Tipu Sultan called the Tiger of Mysore? Because he had defeated a tiger in the forest of Mysore, and he faced with the British as a tiger, and there are many tigers in Mysore, so that's why he was called as the Tiger of Mysore. Tipu Sultan was the successor of his father Hyder Ali, and he ruled on Mysore from 1782 to 1799, and his father Hyder Ali ruled from 1761 to 1782. So Tipu Sultan had a friendship with French and British were enemy. So Tipu Sultan saw that British were wrong and stopped all export from Malabar coast to the British. He stopped all trade with British of sandalwood, cardamom, etc. and disallowed all his merchants to trade with British. So the British saw that Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan were furious for them, arrogant for them, and it was not that British company didn't use its direct military confrontation, it also used it. It didn't annex all Indian states by diplomatic or social policies. So the British fought 4 wars with Mysore. First war was from 1767 to 69. Second was 1780 to 84. In the middle of this war, 1782, the father of Tipu Sultan, Hyder Ali, was died due to cancer, not in the battle. The third war was from 1790 to 1792. In this war, Tipu Sultan had lost his some provinces because Britishers got the company of Marathas and the Nizam of Hyderabad. They accompanied them, and due to this, Tipu Sultan lost some of his provinces and had to treaty with Britishers, in which Britishers asked for money but he couldn't and gave his 2 sons as hostages. And the fourth and last war was in 1799. It was the war only of 17 days. In this war, Tipu Sultan, defending his capital Seringapatam, died, and after him Britishers placed Vodiyas in place of ruler of Mysore and placed a subsidiary alliance on this state. So this was all about Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore. So next topic is war with the Marathas. So Marathas were also a big power at that time. So company also wanted to defeat them and control over their territories. After the third battle of Panipat in 1761, the dream of Marathas to conquer Delhi was shattered because they didn't win that battle. So their dreams to conquer Delhi was shattered. The Marathas were divided into different states which were ruled by Sardars. And these all Sardars were in confederacy by Peshwa. Peshwa, which was in head administrative in Pune. At that time, Peshwa had a effective role because he had to combine all Sardars. So his positions was upper than other Sardars. Some of the Sardars were Sindhya, Gaikwad, Bhosle, etc. And some famous Peshwas were Nana Fadnis and Mahadji Sindhya. So this was about Marathas, but British was also clever. They thought how to conquer Marathas. So the Marathas were not subjugated in one war. There were series of wars. There were fought 3 Anglo-Maratha war. Anglo-Maratha war. If Anglo is in any battle, then it means it was against Britishers. Just like Mysore battle was fought between British and Mysore. So this is called as Anglo-Mysore war. So there were 3 Anglo-Marathas war. First Anglo-Maratha war was ended in 1765 with the Treaty of Salbai. There was no great victory of anyone, any team. In this Treaty of Salbai, it was decided that there would not be any fight between those in 20 forward years. So in 1803, the second Anglo-Maratha war was fought between Marathas and British. In this war, British conquered Odisha and north of the Yamuna river, including Delhi and Agra, and Maratha had lost these provinces. And in the third Anglo-Maratha war between 1817 to 1819, the Marathas were totally crushed and the whole power was reached to the Britishers, and the Marathas' power was totally crushed, and the Peshwa of the Marathas was sent to the Bittur near Kanpur with a pension. This was about war with the Marathas. The next topic is the claim to paramountcy. As I have discussed, that the British rarely used its direct military confrontation. It used mainly diplomatic, social and economic policies. So one of its policies was the claim to paramountcy. Lord Hastings, who was the Governor General of India from 1813 to 1823, declared this claim to paramountcy, in which he declared that the British Empire was paramount or supreme, hence its power was greater than that of any Indian state. So this was claimed to paramountcy. He also declared that the company can annex or can threat to annex to any Indian state because its power was supreme from any Indian state. So this was the claim to paramountcy. It is not that it wasn't challenged, it was challenged when Britishers tried to annex a small state of Kittur. Nowadays it is called as Karnataka. Their ruler Rani Channamma took on arms and led an anti-British resistance movement in 1824, and in 1829 she was caught by Britishers and she died in prison. But the movement didn't stop. A Chaukidar from Sangoli in Kittur, Rayanna, continued this movement and destroyed many camps of Britishers. In 1830, he was caught by Britishers and was hanged in 1830. So it was all about Rani Channamma, and after that Kittur was annexed by Britishers. There was a fear to Britishers about the Russian Empire because at that time Russian Empire was also expanding and it could attack on Britishers from the northwest of India. So Britishers thought to annexed the northwestern part of India. From 1838 to 1842, they fought prolonged wars with Afghanistan, and Afghanistan was annexed after that. In 1843, Sindh was also annexed. Sindh in nowadays is a state of Pakistan, and next in line was Punjab. They also wanted to annex Punjab, but the ruler of Punjab, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, was very powerful. So British thought to wait for some time, and when the time was good, they wanted to annex it. After the death of Maharaja Ranjit Singh in 1839, Britishers had fought prolonged wars with Punjab, and in 1849, Punjab had lost the battle and was completely annexed by Britishers. So this was all about the claim to paramountcy. The doctrine of lapse. So the next policy of the Britishers to annex Indian states was the doctrine of lapse. Lord Dalhousie, who was the Governor General of India from 1848 to 1856, devised this policy. In this policy, it was that if any Indian ruler died without the male heir, then its territory or state would be annexed by Britishers. So this was that in policy, and applying this policy, Britishers had annexed many states. They annexed Satara in 1848, Sambalpur in 1850, Udaipur in 1852, Nagpur in 1853 and Jhansi in 1854. They took Awadh by applying another thing. They applied obliques by duty. They said that they had freed Awadh from the misgovernment of their Nawab. With such humiliating of the Nawab of Awadh, the people of Awadh joined the Great Revolt of 1857. So, this was all about the doctrine of lapse. So, the next topic is setting up a new administration. As British came in India, annexed the states of India, controlled India, they also introduced changes in administration of India. So what were these changes? We will discuss in this topic. So the first Governor General of India, Lord Warren Hastings, who was Governor General from 1773 to 1785, introduced many changes in India. The territories which were controlled by Britishers was divided into administrative units called as presidencies. There were 3 presidencies: Bengal, Madras and Bombay. So these were the presidencies of British, and each presidency was ruled by general, and the all administration was ruled by Governor General. So the Governor General, Lord Warren Hastings, introduced many changes, notably in the sphere of justice. At that time, each presidency was to have 2 courts, a civil court and a criminal court. Civil court was known as Diwan court, and the criminal court was known as Fauzdari court. And the Maulvis and the Hindu Pandits interpreted the local laws for the European district collectors, who presided the civil court. But the criminal case was under Qazi and Mufti under the supervision of collectors. But there were many problems with it. Different Pandits gave different laws according to their schools of Dharmashastra. So this was a problem because a Pandit from northern part gave a different rule, and a Pandit from southern part will give a different rule. So for this, in 1775, British rule compiled a digest of 11 Hindu Pandits to make a combine of their Dharmashastra, to make a rule of their Dharmashastra in a compile of digest. And N.B. Hallett translated this compile of digest in English. And the compiles of Muslim laws were also beneficial for the European countries to know about the local laws of India. And at that time, collector was the head of district. As from the name, we can understand that collector had to collect revenues from the people and maintain law and order in his district with the help of police officers, judges, darogas, and the collectorate. The collector's office persuasively replaced the centers of before authorities. Before authorities means that before in India authority was of king, so it replaced the authority of king. And what other change was occurred? It was the company army. So another change occurred in the administration was the company army. So as the Mughal army was mainly consisted of cavalry, which included Savars, means fighters on horsebacks, and infantry, which means foot soldiers. And the Mughal Empire was mainly consisted of them. So the Savars mainly dominated the power of Mughal army at that time, and they didn't feel to have infantry so much as and train them as professional soldiers. Because any time when there was war or fight or battle, peasants from nearby and zamindari came to fight in battle with arms and other weapons. The Mughal army was trained of archery and of sword. They were trained in traditional methods. But by the early 18th century, changes started to occur in army. The states of Awadh and Banaras started to train their army by focusing mainly on infantry because new technologies were rising. So the Britishers also adopted the same method of training their soldiers. They were focusing mainly on infantry. So these were the technologies which were rising, and British also adopted them, and by the time the Savars completely vanished from the army and there were only infantry soldiers. And by the 1820s, when British was fighting with Afghanistan, Burma and Egypt, they found their soldiers with muskets and matchlocks. Musket is a kind of gun and matchlocks was another kind of gun. So Britishers adopted new technology and called their soldiers Sepoy. Sepoy is an anglicized version of Hindi word Sipai, which means soldiers. Another change also occurred in the British army, which was uniform. They used to keep their soldiers in uniform. They used to drill them, discipline them, which they used to in Britain. So they were keeping their soldiers in uniform, but they were ignoring the feelings of different caste systems. And could anyone give their feelings for this? What was the feelings of Sepoy? We can find much about them in the Great Revolt of 1857, which was started by Mangal Pandey, and we will read this in chapter 5. So the topic, the company army, is completed. So the next topic is conclusion. What is the conclusion of this chapter? The conclusion of this chapter is that the Britishers, which were trade company, came to India for trade and became a territorial power of India. We have seen how they became the territorial power of India. The arrival of new steam technology also helped them in this process of becoming a territorial power. For example, before they took 6 to 8 months to come in India by sea route, by ships, and after the arrival of new steam technology means new technology ships, they took only 3 weeks to come in India. So by technology they became more powerful. By the 1857, the Britishers had control over the 63% of Indian territory and 78% of population of Indian subcontinent. And we can see by virtually they had controlled almost whole India. So this was the whole chapter. I have discussed all topics and subtopics, and in next video I will explain next chapter. So thank you very much.